Hello, my name is Reese, and this is a quick little overview of the Projects module inside Accelo. Projects themselves enable you to organize quite complex work objects that you need to build for that generally have a lot of moving parts or do run over a longer period of time. So you can create projects either by converting a quote for a project with inside your sales module, or you can actually create a project independently of a quote and build it right there in the project plan. I'm going to go through today how you can build a project from scratch, some of the key functions of a project and how to actually interact with those. And essentially how you can use it to manage a large amount of moving parts for any of the work that you need to complete for your clients. So if I go to the create option here and down to project, I can create a standalone project here. So first we give it a name. We then assign it to a company, understanding that if we haven't added this company to our Accelo at this point, we can actually choose to create the company and the contacts straight from here as well. And now we get to the most significant point of the creation of a project is designating a type. Now, the type is exactly as you'd expect. It means you can differentiate some of the defaults or the requirements of different types of projects. For instance, you may have quite short, smaller projects that you do offer your clients that don't need too much management, and then you might have some larger projects that require lots of automation, follow-up, and the type enables you to actually tie a lot of that management and automation to those particular types. So we're just going to select a new project fixed fee. And we're presented with some fields. Now, in this instance, it's a custom ID, enabling you to essentially create your own reference number for the project. In some systems, this would actually be defaulted to whatever the cycling number Accelo chooses. So I'm just going to give this a ID of. We then have the status. Status enables you to actually, say, jump the queue, for instance, with certain projects. You can actually choose the starting point. For instance, if you did have a review or a planning stage, and in some projects that isn't actually required, this enables you to either start at that planning stage or perhaps beyond that. A project manager is selected and is a vital part of a lot of the project automation. Essentially gives the responsibility and the duty of to a particular user for managing this project. This doesn't mean that the individual tasks and responsibilities inside the project can't be assigned to other users, but essentially means that this is the person responsible for moving things forward and keeping everything in check. We then have some dates. The dates actually work quite well when you're using a project plan, essentially the quoted timeline for your project. This means that it can take a large amount of those benchmarks. This task takes 5 days, this task happens after that and takes 10 days, and it can actually take those benchmarks and extrapolate an expected due date and those bits of information. So we're just going to go in here and say today, with a deadline hopefully for next month. We then have options such as the budget and billing results. This enables you to choose a project template, which is your project plan. Just for this demonstration, I'm not going to start with a project plan. I want to kind of show you the building of the project plan to a degree. And you can also pre-select the invoice template used for this project. So if you have different types of invoicing templates, you can actually choose the correct one for this project. Billing contact is great for when you have an accounts person that is separate from the primary contact. You can make sure that they're the ones getting the financial information. On the far right, you have the area where you would have custom fields that are required on setup of the project. Custom fields are essentially your own text boxes, date entries, drop-down options that are bespoke to your business. This can be key information you require to run and operate a project, and you can have them all there in the custom fields. So let's hit save and let's build this project. So in this example, I have a progression that forces me to go into the setup of the project plan on creation of this project. So what this has actually done is it's given the name of the actual project in here. It's given me the start date and a due date here just to pre-fill, and a duration for one. Now, of course, if I wanted to say that the duration of this project is 30 days, editing this information, changing these details here from these dates is affecting the Gantt chart, as you can see across here. Now, we've got quite a few options, but the reality is here is that I can add into these things what are referred to as tasks and milestones. Milestones are the ability to create stages or phases or even folders of different types of tasks. So we might say that the phase one, and I can convert this to a milestone, and I might create an additional one here. And I'm just going to call this phase two, convert to milestone. And with inside each one of these milestones, I might have tasks. Oh. And each one of these components can actually have their own duration. For instance, phase one, let's say that it's going to take 4 days. And that will actually create a benchmark for the expectation here. So if the initial plan, and I can be changing these either in the duration column here, or I can be moving and expanding these as required on the Gantt chart. Noticing that it is ignoring the weekend. Those cannot be worked on, for instance. And I can start actually building out something that looks very, very logical as far as my timeline is concerned. From here, I can start putting in budgeted values where I'll be going in and putting either a calculated value for a period, or I can even choose fixed prices where I simply say that this whole phase is going to cost a set amount of $4,000 and adding that where it rolls all the way up to the project balance. Now, of course, building these out individually for every single project you do can be a little bit laborious. And that's why there is the ability to insert templates or even create from the templates. So if I'm to do this, I can take a full project template, or I can even just take one of the smaller stages, phases, or milestone and insert that into my plan. Inserting this can actually pretty much have most of your components pre-built, where you actually have all those durations, the expected value of those, even the time taken to complete those things. And you can go in here and further refine it. What you're also seeing inside this project plan are some lines that are connecting certain milestones to other milestones, and these are referred to as dependencies. What these enable you to actually do is say that the kickoff here needs to be completed before the defined objects and scope can be completed. So that means that Accelo now knows if that takes 2 days, 3 days, it goes over the time allotted, it knows to push everything back, and you start getting a far more accurate predictive forecast of whether you're on track to complete everything in time. So by adding dependencies and these extra bits of information to your plan, you can have something that will give you far more transparency of the future and the health of your project as you're running them. Note that every milestone and task can go in and have further detail, and it can also be pre-assigned to particular people. And they can also have things such as materials, which are items that are not people's time, but things that can be on charge there. Now, there are far more complexities to the actual project plan, including pre-selecting rates and service items that we're not going to go through with this quick demonstration today, but that's some of the strength here of the project plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save and continue and have this apply to our project as it stands. So here we are here in the overview page of our project. What it's done is it's placed all our milestones and our tasks in the overview page here. Now we can expand each one of these out and actually see how they're tracking. And we'll see more information shortly on assigning these and seeing the status and as it changes. But we'll come back to that in a few moments. On the far left, we see information of the project, such as who it's associated to, the manager, any team members that have been associated, either internally or externally, comments, how we're tracking as far as value of the actual project, our progress as far as time towards our total estimated time for the project, our schedule information, and also things such as important dates, as well as skills and tags here. So some great little quick insights on the side. Now, at the moment, we have a project plan that is, as we saw in the setup, but you'll notice that each one of these milestones and tasks is unassigned. It doesn't have anyone to actually handle the particular duties we've done here. So what we can actually do here is we can go to the tool Assign Work. And the idea here is that we can actually choose which particular users are going to be handling certain things within this project and can do it in a quick and efficient way. As we see here, the owner of the entire project is Dan, and we have each one of these milestones here. The great thing to be aware of is that I don't have to go through each one of these tasks if it's someone that does all of those tasks. I can choose to assign someone to that milestone. Using this bulk assign button, can choose to pre-assign them to all those particular tasks. Now understand that there may be good reason for you to not assign all the tasks out initially. You may choose that as you enter into particular milestones, at that point you want to be assigning people depending on their availability. But this is a great module for doing this in bulk. So I'm just going to apply this here. Now, as you actually start to complete certain tasks, put time against certain tasks, for instance, this kickoff here that has 1 hour allocated to it, if I was to add an activity against here, which is perhaps my meeting notes, let's mark this now as complete. And let's say that I did this over the 1 hour expectation. Say it did go over 1 hour, 25 minutes. I hit save on this note. I start getting information here as to the health of this particular project. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing the status of the tasks, and we're seeing here the total profit. And we see that our profit is actually down on this particular task because it has gone over, hence the actual displayed here that it's over by 25 minutes of the actual budgeted time. Now, if we're not wanting to be looking at this as a profitability standpoint, we can actually change these metrics around. We can see it by the earned value against things as far as how much we're planning on invoicing against reality, but also time, which can simply break down that information as far as how people are best managing things, showing things above and below that budgeted time. As certain milestones are either delayed or they are perhaps completed ahead of time, you'll start getting information on these dates here showing the change from the predicted time done automatically by the system versus your targeted time. Getting simple readouts whether the system believes you're going to be on time or whether it's expecting things to be delayed. And you'll see these dates change and the color grading of them depending on the health of your particular project. So we can then view this project plan in a schedule, which is showing us very similar information as far as those predicted dates as well. And excuse my smaller screen size here, as it is kind of shrinking a lot of this information. But you'll see here all that information such as predicted and targeted dates, and you'll get a breakdown of kind of where the actual slowdown is occurring or where you're actually saving time as far as the project and its movements forward. The great thing is you can also make sure that this particular area of your project is visible from your client via the client portal, so they can actually go in and see what's actually holding things up and kind of where the actual delays may be. Moving across, we have the Insights panel. Now, obviously, I just pretty much started this project, so it's not going to show us too much here. But this gives us a breakdown of the performance and the forecasting of this particular project. Now, it's showing us everything such as earned value, which is really comparing work done versus what you've currently invoiced, and forecast, whether that's healthy or not. Also, profitability, where it's giving you a breakdown of how much you've charged or how much you've acquired here versus the cost of both your materials and also the services and time rendered. Extrapolating that out, the system takes that, takes those over budget and under budget figures and extrapolates that to give you an idea of kind of where you're heading and whether you need to be concerned there. Giving you a simple breakdown of kind of the budget, the value of things invoiced, the cost, the profit, the invoice here on the table, some work in progress information, as well as leaderboards here for individual staff, showing the time lodged and who's lodged the most time against the project versus how well individual staff members on this project are going towards budget, who's the most under budget versus who is perhaps over budget. We then have the stream of the project, which works like all the other areas. The stream is visible inside Accelo, where it shows you a running history of all the notes and movements of this particular project, enabling you to see emails, tasks, notes, and other components as they've been done. Attachments is for files. Materials is where you'll see a list of those hard-coded materials, perhaps from your project plan or your quote. But you can also choose to add materials on the fly, where you can have a library of particular materials with pre-associated costs, etc. And add that to the project on the fly. In the same way that you can add expenses, such as flights, meals, etc., against the actual project, choosing whether to make them billable or non-billable to the client. Your final tab here is the Billings tab, which will essentially collect all the purchase orders raised against projects, as well as invoices raised and their status for this project. With finally the Details tab showing you all those custom fields against this particular project. Now, the other factor we have in a project is this area up the top, which is known as the progression bar. Now, the progression bar enables the manager of this project to do more of the project management and the movement of the project forward. So, for instance, this enables them to have essentially a choose your own adventure where they will either be doing a choice of 3 actions from the plan status, which is move to active and invoice, pause the project, and perhaps even cancel the project. And by selecting one of these progressions, they are presented with all the things they need to actually do at this point. So this instance is presenting an internal note alerting the actual staff that this is being activated. We can save that internal note, add further details if we wanted to. And it takes us to our initial invoice section here, where we are pre-provided with the invoice template. And in this instance, it's just giving us a percentage of the budget, which is 50%. And I can choose to save and send that PDF off. Just going to skip that for now. And that's how you can actually use the progressions of a project to ensure as you're moving through to different stages that you're doing the right things required to manage that project in the best way possible. Now, as you work on projects more and more, you'll get better insights in the overview as well as the insights tab there. But when you go to your list of projects, you'll also be able to have a bird's eye view of each one of your projects, the general health of those projects, as well as the project tasks and how many completed, how many yet to be done, and kind of what status they're currently in. I hope you've enjoyed this quick little overview of the project module. My name is Reese, and have a great day.